recorded, so you'll be able to refer back to it later, or it is also able for you to download it after the recording is loaded. And you will remain enrolled in this course until the end of the buy term so that you will have access to that download. There will also be one of the sessions tonight uploaded to YouTube and linked on the orientation page so that you will be able to access it that way as well. Okay. Couple orders of business. Like I said, this is being recorded. Additionally, there is a survey that will be posted in the chat at the end of the session. It is important that you complete the survey, especially if you are here because your professor has either offered it as credit or extra credit or part of a grade or whatever, because that survey is how I know who your professor is so that I can tell them you attended. The rest of the information on the survey is just for my benefit. Nobody ever sees your answers but me, so don't worry about that part. You're not graded on it. It is just a way for us to get a little bit of feedback and to notify your professors as to who attended the session. So please make sure you do complete the survey. Okay. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay, I know that this looks a little crazy, and it is definitely going to stay looking crazy. Every time I flip back over to see any questions you have, it'll pop up this window in a window in a window in a window in a window situation. I do ask that instead of using your mics, you put your questions into the chat. That makes it a little bit easier for me as I am hearing impaired, and it also makes it easier for me because sometimes you all have topics that I can't spell. I don't even know what the topic is. So if you put them in the chat when we're doing our searches, that makes it much simpler for me. And it will make it easier for you to get the answers that you need. Okay. From the college homepage, a couple things we need to cover. Up here under the hamburger menu is what we have, UC Login. And UC Login lets you access a lot of different apps that the college provides access to. It's going to make you log in. Now, this is one thing that we need to talk about for just a minute. Currently, you've probably gotten a whole pile of emails about this, but currently the college is transitioning from one sign-in to another sign-in, which means that at this particular moment, sometimes you're going to have to sign in multiple times, or you will have to sign in with both sign-ins, which is a lot of fun for everybody. So let me just type this in 3 times on my phone real quick. There we go. All right, so if you're getting multiple sign-ins, then that's not a problem. It's kind of annoying, but they're going to be resolving that hopefully by next week. However, if you are having issues with signing in and you are unable to access the resources, you're unable to sign in at all, or you're getting sign-in errors, you need to contact IT for that. They will be the best resource for you. Grammarly. Now, Grammarly is under my frequently used, but if it's not under yours because you haven't used it yet, you can hop on over to the apps and you can click on Grammarly. This is a great little tool if you struggle with formatting, if you struggle with grammar, if you have issues with where that comma is supposed to go. This is a great place to come. So we can look at our demo document. Another thing that Grammarly does is it's going to check for AI and plagiarism. So if you're worried that maybe you didn't paraphrase something enough, or you're worried that you forgot to cite something, it's going to check it for you. Now, you can run Grammarly. You can download the apps for Grammarly and run it alongside your Windows. It detects what browser you're using, so it knows I'm using Chrome. If you were in Edge, or you were in Safari, or you were in Firefox, then it would detect that and suggest that for you. So it makes it real easy for you to run it alongside of whatever program you're using if you have trouble with those grammar and spelling choices. This is free through the college, so if you have any questions about it, contact either IT or the Learning Commons because this is their baby. I'm not going to rock it. I just get to introduce it to you because it is a handy dandy little feature to have. From the college homepage then, I do want to mention, and honestly, they moved the button, so it's not coming to me right now where it's at, but they do offer free access. I got to go look it up. They do offer free access to Microsoft Office 365 for y'all as well. So if you're currently using, oh, did it stop sharing? Can anybody see my screen? Oh, okay. Good. Every once in a while it stops and I don't know about it and I panic, but I see that I'm window in window, so it should be working. Okay, I'm glad that most of you can see it. Brent, I'm not sure why you're not seeing it. Uh-oh. Okay. For those of you who are not seeing it, let me stop and reshare real quick just to see if that clears it up for everybody. That'll just take me a second. If it does not clear it up, you can always go back and watch the recording and you will be able to see it on the recording, I promise. Maybe I shouldn't, but I'm pretty sure that you will. Okay. I stopped it and I reshared it. I don't know if that resolved the issue for folks or not. If it did not, what I will say is, okay, good. Good. It seems like that maybe fixed it. If you have that problem, you can always go back and watch the recording and you should be able to get the survey from the recording also. So you can still fill that out and get credit if you're unable to watch the thing live. I'm not begrudging anybody that. So, but we're going to carry on for now. Okay. Oh, still nothing. Okay. Good luck, Jordan. All right, so from the college homepage, I have completely, Office, I've lost my plot here. Office 365, y'all. The college does provide free access to that to you. You can go through the IT page and get it. So if you're currently using Google Docs or you're currently using something like LibreOffice, there's nothing wrong with either of those. Frankly, I use Google Docs all the time. But I like to have everything with me everywhere I go, and I don't want it on OneDrive, so I'm a Google Docs girly. But you have choices. Now, the only problem with Google Docs and the only problem with LibreOffice is that most of your professors are using Office, and sometimes there will be formatting issues that get lost in translation. So you might benefit from downloading that just so you can check those yourself. Again, the college provides access to that for you for free, so feel free to take advantage. If we go to academics, we can come to the library, which is what we're all here for. And then we're going to click this big blue button right here. This is the good stuff. And that's going to take us to the main library page. If you're going to bookmark one thing tonight, I encourage it to be this. So down at the bottom, we do have our hours. Because it's summer, our hours are a little bit more limited. We don't have all those wonderful work study students that we love so much helping us out to keep us open longer. We do have library chat that is online from 9 to 5, and then after hours, you can get in and you can go through the FAQ, or you can submit a question to Ask a Librarian. And Ask a Librarian contacts all three of the faculty librarian, whoops, I forgot we added somebody, contacts all four of the faculty librarians here. So you can, you can submit this and someone will get back to you pretty quickly, usually within 24 hours, but normally much, much faster than that. We have citation help. We will circle back to citation help, I promise you. We have ebooks. Now, all of our books and ebooks are available through UC Search. UC Search is our discovery search or our federated search, and that is just a really fancy way of saying it's our search that searches almost everything at the same time. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, but that's what it does. We'll get into some practical searching here in a little bit and talk about the ups and downs. We have our frequently asked questions. We have our feedback form. We have interlibrary loan. Interlibrary loan allows you to request materials that we do not have from other institutions. So you fill out a form. We look and see if it's available. We request it for you, and we get it for you if it's at all possible. Now, typically, it does not take very long. 2 to 5 business days is really for anything that comes in electronically, like an article or a chapter or essay in a book. That normally comes in pretty quickly. Physical items take a little bit longer because they do come through the mail. They have to come to us first, and then we ship them to you. You can request renewals on your physical items. You get 2 weeks at a time for the renewals. You get 30 days for the initial checkout, 2 weeks at a time for each renewal. So you can renew it for a total of another month, essentially. If you have any questions about interlibrary loan, Miss Wren is your contact for that. She's a great resource. What I will say is we don't charge for interlibrary loan, okay? We don't charge you any processing fees. We don't charge you any shipping fees. So if you use interlibrary loan, the only time you'll ever pay anything is if you are returning an item. You do have to pay for the return shipping. You can ship it back via media mail. That is the very cheapest way to ship anything. And otherwise, unless you somehow lose or catastrophically damage an item, there's no fee. Okay, so we do try to keep this as affordable and accessible as possible. Do we have any questions about interlibrary loan? No? Okay, we're going to keep on chugging then. So back to the page we go. We have laptop checkout. Unless you're on campus, of course, or you're at least close to campus, this is not that useful to you. But if you do come to campus for a residency weekend or anything, laptop checkout is available to you. You figured out the library orientation sessions. Library tutorials. Most of these tutorials are focused on using UC Search, but there are some other useful tools there as well. We do have a makerspace. This is open to everyone, including our online students. But of course, unless you're local, that's not the most useful thing to you. But if you do happen to come to campus and you want to check it out and take advantage, please feel free to do so. The Appalachian Collection and the Governor Burt T. Combs papers includes our rare book collection. We typically will not mail those. We will happily send you anything else in our collection, but anything that's rare or particularly fragile, we cannot loan out. However, we will do our best to make it accessible by scanning in pages for you and making those things available to you. Okay. Over here to the middle of the page, we do have our UC Search. UC Search is here. Find Journals by Title is here. This is an AI research assistant. I have no real thoughts on that yet. TBD. We also have our study room reservations available to you. What I will say about the study room reservations is if you do plan to come to campus and you are going to need some place to post up for a few hours, I encourage you to take advantage of the reservation system. Because even during the summer, although we're getting off to kind of a slow start this summer, even during the summer, these rooms book up really quickly and there's a lot of competition for them. So if you know, oh, I got to be on campus next week and I'm going to need a place to study for a while, reserve your room. Okay? We have our databases A to Z. This is an alphabetical listing of all of our databases. So if you know what resource you want, you can just go straight to it. But if you don't know what resource you want and you're not sure how to get started, that's where the research guides come in. So we have a research guide for every area of study that the university supports. Okay? So let me ask y'all who I have tonight. Are you education? Are you nursing? Are you counseling? Are you IT? Are you health and human services? Counseling, education, business, health and human performance, coaching and fitness leadership. Okay. So we got a good diverse group. So let's get into this. So good. Okay. So we're going to get into all of these a little bit. So we have a group for everybody. We have a site for everybody. So we have counseling. We have business. Oh, we do have criminal justice. Oh, got too many windows open already. We've got criminal justice. We've got education. And we've got our health and human performance, which is also where our coaching folks are going to fall. And we do have a leadership studies guide as well. I think I got everybody. Oh, I missed human services. There we go. Okay. So one thing that you will notice is that all of these guides are very, very similar. And that is on purpose. All of these guides are very, very similar because some of you will find that your topic overlaps into one area or another, right? So you're doing coaching, but let's say you're specifically doing coaching in elementary school. So you're working with student athletes, right? So you might also look at the education databases. If you're doing business and you want to look at business related topics specifically as they relate to healthcare, you might want to go look at one of the healthcare related databases, right? So we want these to be easy for you all to switch between and navigate, because we want it to be easy for you to find the resources you need. Okay. So I think all of you, let's go down. So on each guide, you have a top resources, and then you have a bunch of different tabs. We're going to work our way backwards through the tabs, friends. All right. And that means we're going to start with citation help tools. I did tell you we would circle back. So on citation help tools, you can see we've got all the different style guides here. And we do also have a link and information on the Learning Commons. If you have questions about grammar, about citations, about formatting, about layout, about any of that stuff, you need to talk to the Learning Commons. They are our experts. They have people who can read your papers, review your discussion posts, whatever you need, and make good suggestions for you on how to correct anything you're having issues with, or just provide support if you just need somebody to verify that you've done something correctly. Okay, they are great for that. Please, please, please make a note. Ask them your questions if you have any about that area. Okay. Please also make a mental note about this Find DOI button, because we're going to talk about that here in just a few minutes. We're going to talk about Academic Writer. I think, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't think I have anybody who's not going to use who's not going to use APA. Is that correct? You're all using APA formatting? That's what I thought. I think we've got only maybe the physical therapy and the PA people who are using something else at this point. Maybe the history people still have to use Turabian, in which case, good luck to the history people. Okay, so in that case, we're going to go into Academic Writer. Now you can see there's a couple different options here. Academic Writer is a bibliographic manager. So how many of you are currently using some kind of bibliographic manager? And when I say bibliographic manager, I mean Purdue OWL, EndNote, RefWorks, Zotero, Mendeley, Perla, any of those, or even already using Academic Writer. Okay. So Academic Writer is a bibliographic manager and writing help tool that has actually been created by the APA. And so what I'm going to say about this is, for those of you that are specifically in the EDD or PhD programs, you have a specific format that you are supposed to work within. This does not supersede that. It is APA based, but there are some small differences. This can still help you kind of get things set up and get going, but you need to make sure that you are falling within the format requirements that the dissertation program gives you. That is the only commentary I can make. I am not part of that program directly, so I have no information on that specific formatting and that kind of thing. So just bear that in mind. So what I'm going to show you is just general APA formatting tonight. Okay. All of the library resources require you to log in. If you watch the top of the screen and look at our bar, as you watch this, you're going to see it resolve through multiple URLs before it lands on academicwriter.apa.org. Okay. Again, because this is by APA, it's considered an authoritative resource. That's why this is the one that we choose to provide. Okay. even though I'm already logged in through the college, and again, you can't bookmark this, because if you bookmark this, when you come back, it's not going to know that you're a member of UC, and it's going to tell you that your account has expired and you owe them money. You don't. It didn't. You just didn't go through the right link. You have to go through the citation help page always, always, always. Okay? Even all of that being said, you still need to create an account for Academic Writer and sign in. Sorry. If you haven't done it before, there'll be a create account button. Otherwise, you can just click log in. It's going to take me to my list of references. Okay, I have a lot of references. I'm going to add another one. And you can see that most of them have a tag. Okay. And if I click on that tag, it's going to show me all of the references that I have organized for that particular topic or paper or whatever, however I'm choosing to sort it, right? I can add references, and I have two different ways to do so. I can click on the type of reference that it is, and I can fill out all of this information, and it will generate a reference for me, or I can just click on import. It's going to make you choose a file origin. I want to emphasize, as always, that this does not matter. You have to do it, but it does not matter. I can choose ProQuest. I can choose EBSCO. It is not calculating where that is coming from. It just makes you pick one. So I can view my imported record. I can see if there's any changes I need to make to it. I can come in here and I can add my tag. I've got my spring paper going right now, which if it sounds like I'm yawning, that's because I can't breathe, because allergy season is upon us. So I'm going to put my allergic to everything tag on there. Now, this article has a DOI. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to update this reference. I'm going to go back to my references, and I'm going to see if I can find one that doesn't have a DOI. The problem with correcting my mistakes is that then I don't have any mistakes to use as an example. Here we go. Let's come in and look at this one. So according to APA format, there's a little bit of a hierarchy, right? Your first choice when you're doing a citation is that you should include the DOI. If there is no DOI for whatever reason, you should include what they call the permalink. The permalink can also be called the durable URL, the stable URL, the permanent URL. There's a, well, what in the world? Let me refresh that real quick and see if I can figure out why it's doing that. There we go. I just pasted in instead of copying, apparently. Oh. DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier. That's a good question. And so DOI is a voluntary program. Here we go. DOI, Here's the problem with the permanent links, and this is the reason that DOI has become popular, is that sometimes databases update and then you never know quite if your link is actually going to work. A lot of the ones I've tried recently have not worked. So Digital Object Identifier, the idea is that if somebody republished this article in 5 years with updates, it would not have this DOI. This DOI would always belong to this issue of this article from the time that it was published. If it was republished or edited, it would get a new DOI so that you're always consistently referring to the same object. It is a voluntary program, which means not every journal publisher participates, and it also means that some journal publishers have said, we're going to put everything going forward in, but we're not going to put older stuff in. So there are always going to be things that just don't have a DOI. There's also occasionally a lag in DOIs being assigned, so a really new article might not have a DOI yet. There used to be a fully 6-month-long lag that has mostly been resolved, but occasionally there will still be stuff that is waiting on a DOI. So I've come to my article. I can go in here and I can look at my citation information and see if it gives me the DOI. It does not give me a DOI here. It only gives me the URL. So what can I do? I can take the title of this article and I'm going to go back to the citation page and go to Crossref. And I'm going to search that article by title. Okay? There is no article by that title in Crossref. So what does that mean? Crossref cross-references all kinds of different places to look for DOIs, essentially. If it's not in your database and it is not in Crossref, the DOI most likely does not exist. The only other thing you could really do to find a DOI is go to the journal publisher page, look at the journal on the publisher's page, see if it's fully indexed on the publisher's page, see if that index includes the DOI, which it may or may not. And most likely, that's where Crossref is going to be pulling their data from. So if it's not there, it's probably not there either. You know, it's not in Crossref. It's not going to be anywhere else. The reason that this is important is some of you will put something in that has the URL and you will get pushback from your professor and they will say, hey, why didn't you use a DOI for this? You need to be able to say, there was no DOI cited in the database. There was no DOI for it in Crossref. Therefore, I was unable to cite it using that, so I used the permanent link. Okay? You need to be able to say that. And I will tell you straight up, many of your professors do check that. I get contacted all the time by professors saying, I can't find this. Can you go double check it for me? And I will go look and see if there was a DOI. So don't think that they are not looking. They do go behind you and check very often to see if there was a DOI that you didn't cite correctly. So if you can say, though, there's no DOI, I checked it in Crossref, there's no DOI, I checked it in the database, then citing it with that permanent link was the correct choice. Okay. Back to Academic Writer. Where would you normally find a DOI? So in the databases, let me see if I can go back. No, because I opened it from the URL. It's not going to let me do it. When we get into the databases, you will... Boy, it is really taking its sweet time to think about its choices here. Let's just go forward then. Nope. Okay. Normally when you're in the databases, you will have an abstract or summary for an article, and that abstract or summary will include the DOI, or when you click on the citation information, it will include the DOI. If it is not here, then you take the title and you search Crossref. Those are really the only two places to look. But it is normally somewhere in that summary. When we get into doing searches here in just a few minutes, we will look at a full abstract and I will point the DOI out to you so you can see it there as well. Okay. So those are the basics of setting something up for your reference list in Academic Writer, and you could stop here. Okay, but what sets Academic Writer apart from the Purdue OWL and Zotero and Mendeley and that whole big long-tailed list is coming over to the right section. So you can start a new paper and they've got templates for you. I always just start a basic paper because I like to format my own stuff for the most part. But I am going to come into my spring paper, Developing Environmental Allergies as an Adult. That is what my life is. And I'm going to show you what you can do here. So you can set up your title page, which includes your title information and your author information. You can set up the body. Now, if you so chose, you could write your whole thing in here. You even have an option to click it into focus mode so you have a bigger screen. This is still not big enough for me. I need the whole screen to be me writing. I need to visualize, right? But that is up to you. You can use this as much or as little as you like, which is one of the things that I really like about Academic Writer. If all I wanted to do was keep track of my reference list, it can do that. If all I want to do is come in here and create citations, it can do that. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to add a citation to this paper. I'm going to click Insert. I'm going to put Find and Cite a Reference, and I'm going to search for allergic to everything. That was my tag. So I'm going to come in here and find my new one that I added. If I can remember what the new one was, we're going to say it was this one. I don't think that it was, but that's okay. All right, so now I'm going to click create reference. Well, no, it's a lie. I'm going to click cite. And I'm going to tell it that I want a narrative citation and that it is a quotation, okay? And so I am going to cite a new quotation from that source, and I'm going to say that it's from page 11. And I'm going to type in some nonsense. Unpredictable weather can have an impact on allergy sufferers. So I just recently learned that there's such a thing as thunderstorm-induced allergies, where the drop in pressure actually forces pollen into the air and it can cause asthma attacks. And boy, that's not a thing that I needed to exist. Okay, but what you can see is that my citation is here. All of my information, all of my punctuation, everything I needed is here. And not only is it here, but it will also add that to my reference list. So now I can click export. I can download this little guy. I'm going to go ahead and download it in Word because I want to be able to edit it. Okay, so I'm going to click Enable Editing, and you're going to be able to see, here's my page numbers, here's my title page, my author information, my header on the second page with my page numbers continuing. So if these are things that I have a hard time setting up, maybe technology is not my strong suit, I always hated doing headers personally, I can come in and have this help me out with that. I also have a full reference list here, right? So all I need to be responsible for doing is proofreading. Okay, proofreading is super important, don't get me wrong, but this is so much faster than doing it from scratch, right? Rather than going in and creating each citation individually and having to build that out, now all you're doing is going behind yourself and checking for errors. So please just kind of keep this in mind as a tool that can help you and can take you through the resources that maybe it's a little bit slower if you're doing it by hand. This is a great way to just speed up that process and give you a little bit more organization. Do y'all have any questions on Academic Writer or Crossref or the Learning Commons? Nope. Okay. We're going to keep on going then. All right, so let me close the window there so that that's not taking up any space, and we'll go back here. And you will find that citation help tool on every single page, on every single research guide. This should be very easy for you to find. We do have our web pages. These are resources that your professors have asked us to share with you. Some of them are professional resources, some of them are online resources, but these are all linked up here for you. We also have our multimedia page. For our counseling folks in particular, y'all love a video. You are, I think, our top video users, and most of your videos are in either Alexander Street or Films on Demand. So as you saw with me demonstrating a permalink that I had previously placed in a citation, sometimes those links go out of date. Even if your professor checked them at the beginning of the semester, that does not mean that they won't vanish halfway through. Permanent link feels like it should be in quotation marks most of the time. But what happens is, in that situation, you can come into those databases and you can search by title. Okay, so even if the link does not work, do not despair. Just come in, and they're almost always in either Alexander Street or Films on Demand. So just bear it in mind. Take advantage of that. Okay. If you have any issues, always feel free to reach out and let us know. We'll talk about the leadership guide in a minute. We also have our articles and more. Our top resources page is where I'm always going to send you first, but articles and more has supplementary information that you may benefit from. Okay, so for example, education folks, particularly leadership and education folks, the Chronicle of Higher Education. We love it. It's a fantastic resource. It is not a scholarly source. Okay? This is not peer-reviewed. This is not scholarly. But you can come over to the data that they have collected, which is fantastic. And you can say, okay, I want to look at the data here about where college thinks its peers are, student protest. And what I can do is I can come in here and look at this data, and that data can help me, but it's also going to show me where they pulled this data from. And many times that will be either a government resource or it will be from a scholarly source, and then you can go back and cite that. So you may not be able to cite this page as scholarly, but you can go back to the origin of the information and use that. So don't feel like just because this is not necessarily the scholarly source that you can't trace it back and go find that information and still be able to use it. And a lot of this data is so valuable, and they have formatted it really nicely and made it accessible, okay? Just keep that in mind. Okay. All right, so that's one of the things that you're going to find on top resources. Or on Articles and More and top resources. Another thing you're going to find is Learning Express Library. Some of you are coming to education or to, well, yeah, mostly to education or to other fields a little bit indirectly. So some of you may have done something else for your undergraduate work, and now you find yourself moving into education or specializing in education, and you never took the praxis. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Well, guess who has praxis test? That's right, it's Learning Express Library. They also have some other testing instruments in there, so feel free to express that or explore that. But if you're specifically going into education, that's a great place to take praxis. You know, I did a lot of speech therapy as a child, but it never prepared me to say praxis test. Whew. Okay, so that's really what Learning Express Library is about. That's what the Articles and More is about, is just finding supplemental materials that maybe aren't your first stop. To that same end, for those of you who are in leadership and are gearing up to the point where you're going to be looking at testing instruments, I know there are a few professors out there who have recommended that their students purchase Mental Measurements Yearbook Test and Print. And what I have to say to that is I'm never going to tell you that you shouldn't buy or use a textbook that a professor has assigned. But I know that some folks have told their students that they should purchase it as a supplemental text because, and I quote, the library doesn't have it. We super duper totally do have it. Okay. So, unless you have a real specific need to own it, I would maybe save myself that $150 to $200. And use the online version. But that is, of course, always your choice, and you can always consult with your professors and ask them if they have something specific in the print edition that they don't make available in the online edition that they would like you to explore. We also have books and ebooks. All of these resources are going to be available through that federated search, that discovery search we talked about earlier, the UC search. But there are a couple things to point out specifically. Everybody's got different information on their books and ebooks, right? Counseling, you have one other, wait, where did counseling go? Did I close counseling? By golly, I did. Counseling, you have one other page that everyone else does not have, because we just got some brand new, posted up yesterday, I think, brand new resources for you. And so you have a counseling journals page. Many of these journals are part of the Taylor and Francis collection that we just added for you, but not all of them, so you may want to click through and explore this. Essentially, almost everyone has a journals not in databases page. And what that really means is that there are resources that we have to purchase, as we would call it, a la carte. They are not part of a larger database. They are not part of a larger resource. And therefore, we have to buy them individually out there on their own. Counseling requested some really specific journals, and so that branched off to be enough that it got its own tab instead of its own little box. But essentially, the same rules apply. It is just something that, because you guys requested so many, you get your own tab. But everyone else gets a box. If we add any more for education, they're going to end up with their own page too. One thing I do want to say about education is there is one that is not online. That is School Arts. At this time, we are now not able to purchase that a la carte. So if you are interested in articles from School Arts, you can find the indexing online, and we are happy to go to our physical copies, scan them in, and share that with you, but we're not able to get an online version at this time. Okay. Before we get into the top resources, does anyone have any questions for me up to this point? No? Okay, so let's talk about the top resources. They're a little bit different for everyone, of course. And we're going to do some active searching. But on your page, some of these databases are like for counseling: PsycArticles, PsycInfo, Psychology and Behavioral Sciences, and Sage Journals. Those are your 4 biggest databases for doing research. 5-Minute Consult is a great resource, but it is a clinical resource. It is for something for you to look at while you're with patients, in other words. We do have the DSM library. Several of you will find yourselves taking advantage of that. That does include the DSM-5 TR. We have CINAHL with full text for counseling. If you're looking at medical issues, that's related. But if you're not, that's probably not where you want to go. The same thing goes for everyone. Criminal justice. You're going to spend most of your time in criminal justice abstracts. We also have Hein Online, which is a great resource, and Nexus Uni. Oh, Lord. Okay. In the dark ages, when I was in college, Nexus Uni was 2 separate databases, and they were like all the databases that there were, and they were called Academic Universe and LexisNexis. Somewhere along the line, they merged into one database, and now they are called Nexus Uni. Up until a couple of years ago, they were LexisNexis Academic Universe, which is a mouthful. So why do we care about Nexus Uni specifically? And for all of you, this could be applicable depending on your topic. Nexus Uni lets you look at specific legal cases and lets you see case law related to legal cases. Okay, so if I'm interested in that, I can come in here. Now, business people, there are also things like company profiles and market insight here for you as well. Okay, I am not going to lie to anyone. I am going to tell you that Nexus Uni is so clunky. I'm just gonna, I get a lot of people asking about Coca-Cola, so I'm going to just search for soda, okay? And I'm not necessarily getting what I want, but that's okay. I should have searched for soft drinks probably. But I can come in here and I can see market insights, company profiles, all that good stuff. So if that's something that I'm looking for from a business standpoint, I want to come here. But again, we can also look up legal cases. So you can come in here and you can say, what do I want? What information am I looking for? And you can go over to the legal side of it and say, I want to look at cases, blah, blah, blah. So there's all kinds of content in here that's really good for those 2 specific areas in particular. But again, if you're in education and you're wanting to look at like the laws behind No Child Left Behind, lawsuits related to that kind of thing, you could come in here and do that also. So this is a great database that kind of a little bit in left field. That's why it's on Articles and More for most of you. It doesn't necessarily apply directly, but for those of you in criminal justice, you'll find a lot of case law information in there. Okay. Education. ERIC, Education Source, Sage. Those are your 3 biggest education databases. Health and Human Performance. Your biggest database is Sport Discus. Those of you who are in coaching in particular, you should just commit to Sport Discus. In fact, we have, I think, the tutorial that probably needs updated that is just for Sport Discus, okay? That's how much y'all use it. We made you your own special database tutorial, okay? You might also use Medline. And those of you who have professors who want you to use PubMed, Medline actually indexes PubMed, so this is one way for you to reach those resources, okay? Leadership studies. Let's talk about the leadership studies guide, because leadership does not exist in a vacuum, right? All of you are leadership in education, leadership in business, leadership in coaching, leadership in counseling, whatever you're doing leadership in is not in a vacuum. So you are going to want to look at this guide, but you are going to want to look at these guides as well, right? Because this is not going to take you to Sport Discus. This is going to take you more generally to many leadership related topics. The one that I want to make sure that I point out to you if you're doing leadership is career and technical education. I love this database. It has the worst name because that makes it sound like it is an education only database. It is not. This is a vocational and professional development related database. If you're researching burnout, if you're researching leadership types, if you're researching anything in that area, if you're looking for information on professional development paths, you want to be looking in career and technical education. Okay. There's other information here for you, information on finding statistics, information on finding survey instruments, all kinds of good stuff for you here, okay? There's also a dissertation specific guide to help with a little bit more of this. Human services, APA Psych articles, APA Psych info, psychology and behavioral sciences, SAGE, okay? Business, ABI Inform, career and technical, Nexus Uni, and Sage. Sage is a little bit for everybody, all right? So I feel like I've missed somebody. If I have, I'm sorry. Please yell at me and I'll come back to you. But now what we're going to do is some practical searching. So what I need from you, my friends, is some topics. Otherwise, I have to make up my own topics, and that's much less fun for everybody. So if you have a topic that you're considering going into, if you have a topic you'd like to see me research so you can see how I approach it, this is your opportunity. Okay. Great. All right. So I've got two good topics. Is it Jada or Jida? I hate mangling people's names. All right. Well, right now, you said Jada? Okay. Just making sure. Okay. I come from a long eye people. We like to make everything the long eye. Okay. Even names that don't necessarily require it. All right, so nutrition. So we're going to go into health and human performance first. And I think I want to go into CINAHL. And I'm going to pick on you just a tiny bit, but to your own benefit. All right, so we're going to search for nutrition. And we're going to search nutrition two places. We're going to start in CINAHL. This is a subject-specific database. I have 145,909 results. I'm going to also come over and do a search. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I'll try on that one. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a search in my federated search. Okay, now I have 1,470,988 results. So let's talk about it. Those of you who are doing your EDD or your PhD, you are required to do what is called an exhaustive search. That means you are supposed to seek out and find every possible related resource to your topic. Books, articles, whatever, dissertations, all of it, okay? For the rest of you, you can be a little bit more narrow in your scope and say, I only need to look at journal articles. I only need to look at books. You can choose that a little bit more. What I want to say to those of you who have to do an exhaustive search is be specific. Okay. Why is this search so much bigger than this search? Well, part of the reason that this search is so much smaller is because I'm in a subject-specific database. I am setting a limiter for myself that says I only want to see results that are related to my topic. So I'm in nutrition. I'm treating it as a medical topic. You can tell me if I'm wrong. Because nutrition could be a business topic. Nutrition could be an education topic. Nutrition could be a medical topic. Nutrition could even be a mental health topic, right? So I have chosen to go into a medical database to look at it. I could add other databases to it if I wanted to, but this is where I chose to start. And that is part of why my search is so much smaller, because this is my filter. This is my limiter. Is I said, I want to see this topic from this specific angle. We can also add language to this, right? So I might want to say nutrition and self-care. I know a lot of the counseling people are doing self-care topics. Now I'm down to 3,398. If I come back to this search and I add that same addition to it, I dropped a whole bunch. I'm under 1 million, which is good. I'm at 15,000. This is still a much, much bigger search than I want. Because ultimately, what librarians have found in their research is that nobody is really looking past page 3. Okay? If you've got 50 pages of results, your dream article might be on page 25, but you're not going to get there. So the more precise and specific we can make our searches, the more we will benefit from that. So when we're talking about doing thorough or exhaustive searches, yes, I'm not trying to tell you to cheat around that. I'm telling you to be thorough and exhaustive in a very, very narrow scope. Your target should be laser focused. And if you are not there yet with your laser focus, you're still thinking about your topic, you're still trying to figure out where you want to go, this is where you want to start by using a lot of filters or a lot of limiters so that you can kind of see what is out there. And that can help you build what you want your topic to be and how specific you need your topic to be and what direction you're going to specifically go in. Okay. So to that end, I'm going to say I only want to see full text articles. This defaults to full text. If I'm doing an exhaustive search, I need to make it go to see everything and not default to the full text. Okay, I would want to expand my results. Over here, if I click full text, now I'm down to under 1,000, right? I was still up pretty high. Now I'm down to under 1,000. Over here, I'm going to tell it that I only want to see peer reviewed. Okay. Now I'm down to 12,000. Over here, I'm going to say peer reviewed. Now I'm down to, well, still over 800, but barely. Let's talk about the terminology peer-reviewed. Peer-reviewed articles, scholarly journal articles, academic journal articles. Those terms are interchangeable. They all mean the same thing, okay? So if you're in a database and you don't see the word peer-reviewed, or you're in a database and you don't see the word scholarly, look for the other terms because they are used interchangeably. Different databases use them. I feel like academic journal articles has fallen a little bit out of vogue. That's kind of what they called them back in the day, but they still exist. Some databases still use that terminology. So just be aware that that language is out there and you may see other places using it. So if your professor tells you only use scholarly articles and you don't see that button, that's because the button says peer reviewed. Okay? If your professor says only use peer reviewed and you don't see that button, look for the button that says scholarly. Okay, that terminology is interchangeable. Why does it matter? Peer-reviewed articles are articles built on levels of expertise. As a librarian, I am not out here writing for an economics journal, okay? I could take the economy down, right? That's how little I know about what's going on. I could mess things up. Nobody wants me doing that. Keep me away from the economics journal. I'm going to write about my area of expertise, okay? To that same end, economic journal people, economists are not going to be writing for library journals, right? That's not their area of expertise. So your first level of expertise is an expert author. They're an expert in their field. Your second level of expertise is an expert editor. That means they're being edited by their peers. That's where the whole concept of peer review comes from. I'm going to look at another librarian's work and I'm going to be able to read it, understand it, and give constructive feedback to it because that's my area of expertise. If you bring me your paper and you're in health and human performance, I can maybe do a grammar check, but that's about as far as we're going to get into it, right? So you want an expert looking at those resources for you, all right? That's what peer review is. That's who the editors are. The next layer of expertise is expert readers. That's where you all come in. You should be looking at articles that use professional language and technical terminology. When we read a newspaper or a magazine, those newspapers and magazines, and this is my area of expertise because this is what I studied as an undergraduate, they tell their writers to keep it dumbed down, basically. And people are supposed to write at an 8th grade or lower level because they want it to be accessible to everyone. They want all readers to be able to read and understand it. That also means you'll frequently see an article that has a lot of background information that you may look at it and think, who needs to be told this? You'll pick up an article, pick up a newspaper or magazine and be like, Taylor Swift, singer-songwriter, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, everyone knows who Taylor Swift is, but there's somebody out there who's been living under a rock who needs that information, okay? And their job is to reach as many people as possible. Scholarly journals, their job is to reach their precise audience. They're not going to give you that background information. They're not going to give you that explainer about who somebody is because there's an assumption that you know it, and that's why you're reading it, okay? And then the final layer of expertise here is expert sources. They are supposed to share their sources for you. So if you're looking at an article and you're on the fence about whether or not it classifies as scholarly and there's no references, there's 1 or 2 references, the references look really suspect, that should be a sign to you that you should leave that article and move on, right? So those are the things you kind of want to be looking for when you're trying to decide whether or not to use an article. Okay. So now we've narrowed our search down a little bit. We're going to get better, but we're also going to set one more limiter, and that limiter is time. For the majority of you, you are going to be instructed to limit yourself to articles to either the past 5 years, 7 years, or 10 years. You can come in here and specify, but we're going to just choose a default here to the past 5 years. You're looking for the most current information. The exception to that is if you are looking at a seminal work. Okay, so what is a seminal work? A seminal work is a work from which a theory or practice originates. So if you are in counseling and you are looking at the modern application of the theories of Carl Jung, then the writings of Carl Jung would be considered a seminal work, right? That is where the theory originated. Okay. Let's look at one of our results. Okay. You have the PDF full text here. You can also just click download and it's going to give you your information. You can download the full text that way. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. We want to view the PDF in the window. So here is my full article. It also gives me some related titles, which is nice. It's going to suggest articles that are maybe related to my topic. I'm going to go back to my abstract though. Let's break this down. Okay, here's my author information. I can always click on my author information and see if the authors have any other related articles. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I'm going to look at where they're from because this can help me decide on their expertise. I want to look at the subjects. Different databases use different language. There's subjects, there's keywords, there's descriptors, there's author supplied keywords, there's major and minor subjects. But if I am looking for information, I am trying to narrow down my topic or even trying to expand my research, looking at these subjects can help me because maybe there's a terminology I haven't considered. Maybe there's language I want to think about implementing. I always want to read my abstract because y'all, what you do not want to do is spend time reading a 10 or 20 or even sometimes 30 or 40 page paper. This one's short, it's only 4. And then find out that it's not related, okay? Here is your DOI. If it's going to be included, here's where it typically will be, especially in the EBSCO databases, is sort of towards the bottom of this abstract page, okay? All right, let's go back to our search. I need to close some windows so I can better demonstrate. So let me eliminate some things here. Just to make this a little bit simpler, I can always open them back up. I did close the business guide again, didn't I? Let me go back into business. Okay. All right, so we're going to move between some of our topics now so that I can demonstrate to you how to build a better search, okay? So I'm going to open some education databases now. We're going to go into our top resources, and we're going to go to education source. And now comes the fun part, because there is somewhere in between using the discovery search and searching everything and using a subject-specific database. And that is, if databases are part of the same host family, I can search them together. So in this case, our 2 largest education databases are Education Source and ERIC, and I don't have to choose between them. I can do both at the same time. To that same end, if I wanted to include Sport Discus here, so I could maybe look at this and oops, I went too far. In that setting, I could add Sport Discus to my database. If I'm doing business and I want to look at ABI Inform, and I also want to, pop up. And I also want to look at career and technical, I can do that, right? I can choose to search multiple databases as long as they are part of the same database family. Okay. So over here in the education databases, we're going to look for inquiry-based learning and visual art. Okay. I'm going to let it autocomplete that for me. And then I'm going to add visual art, and we'll see what we get. Maybe a lot, maybe a little. We're going to see we got 77, so that is not bad. I did not specify some stuff, though. So we're going to get in here, and we're going to make some magic. We're going to set our limiters again, full text, peer-reviewed, getting smaller, last 5 years. Now, if it gets too small, I might extend that up. That's only 9 results, but let's start with what we've got, okay? Now, I want to get rid of the word visual here because my search is very small and precise, and I want to maybe expand it a little bit so that I can do some other things with it. So that took me up to 82. Why did I get rid of the word visual? The databases rely on people to tag articles. So depending on whether or not an article on art was specifically tagged as visual art to help it find it, this may or may not get you everything you want. So we're going to do it both ways. We searched for visual. It got very narrow, only 9 results. So I'm going to back it off a little bit. But now I'm going to add a result, another term. I'm going to put in high school. Okay. And now I'm going to do advanced search, and I'm going to add another line, and I'm going to do all of this the same. I'm going to change this to or, and I'm going to put secondary school. Okay, I have 15 results. Why did I do it that way? So this is a Boolean modifier. There is another Boolean modifier in my search, and it is the word and. I'm searching for inquiry and based and learning and art and high and school. I'm searching for inquiry and based and learning and art and secondary and school. Each of these is a separate search string, and between each word, joining them up, is the word and. You can't see it. You don't ever need to type it, but it's there. Okay? It's ghost modifier, haunting our searches all the time. There are things we can do to change that, to take things out and put things in. But we're going to start with this. Why or? Or is a Boolean modifier. There are 5 major Boolean modifiers: and, or, quotation marks, truncation, and not. Okay? If you search 9 through 12, and we could do that. We could come in here and we could do add advanced search. We're going to add another or line. I always find it easier to do this in the advanced search than typing it out in the big long search string, even though it will just add it to it for me. Okay. So now I've still only got 15 results. That didn't change anything. But we want to be thinking, again, especially those of us who need to do exhaustive searches, we want to be thinking in terms of synonymous language, right? High school, secondary school, 9 through 12, those are the same thing, right? Those terms all mean the same thing, but if I only search high school, I only get high school. If I only search secondary school, I only get secondary school. So I want to think about the language that I am using, okay? How can I make it work better for me? How can I be more flexible? That's why we took out visual. There's nothing wrong with visual as a search term. We could put it back in, but it's making this really, really strict in a way that technically political cartoons would be considered visual art, but was this tagged as visual art? I don't see it in the tags, right? So we want to think about, are we adding enough terms to make our search precise enough, but are we adding so many terms we're not getting results that we need, right? It's a fine line to walk. Now you're going to see that many of these now have a natural language searching button. I will say, first of all, I admit that I am resistant to change, so that is a personal flaw that I am working on. But also, I don't think the natural language searching in the databases is great yet. Natural language searching is how Google works, which is why you can type something crazy into Google, like, hey, Google, what was that episode of Star Trek where Spock had a toupee or a goatee and was his own enemy? And Google's going to figure it out and give you a result, right? The databases don't really work that way. And even using natural language search, the databases don't really work that way. Using Boolean modifiers, however, you can carry out to other databases and you can carry it out to Google. So why do we love a Boolean modifier? Well, Boolean modifiers give us control. So if I'm searching for nutrition and self-care, and I feel like I'm still getting too many results that aren't relevant, I can put self-care in quotation marks. I've dropped off about 2,000 results doing that. Why did that work? Because I put self-care in quotation marks. And now, instead of looking for any article with the word self and any article with the word care, I'm looking for a phrase, right? This is now one key phrase instead of 2 key words. That is how this works. That's how quotation marks work. Okay, so what I would say for, I am gonna absolutely mangle your name, and I apologize. Is it Prashant?
Correct.
Prashant. We're gonna break this down to its core elements because you've essentially given me a thesis, and I want to come in here and break it down to keywords. So we're gonna say corporate tax policies. And I'm going to go ahead and say I want full text and peer reviewed right out of the gate. And okay, so some of this may be things that you are actually wanting government documents for. So let me do a search in ProQuest real quick, and then we'll talk about looking at GovDocs. Okay, let's look at corporate tax policies and applications. I'm going to put the word impact in here. I don't love the word impact, and I'll explain why. So I still have 41,000 results. I'm actually going to go ahead and put corporate. I'm actually going to put, no. Let's put corporate tax policies in quotation marks to start. Now I have 40 results. So I narrowed my search way, way down. So I'm trying to steer it a particular way, and that's the future for the state corporate income tax, right? So I might want to come in and look at this article specifically. It's from a scholarly journal. It's current, all the good things that I want, right? I can also come in here and limit my date to the last 5 years. So why don't I love the word impact? One of the reasons that I don't love the word impact is because it implies an outcome, right? When we search for the impact of something, we assume out of the gate that there is an impact. When we search for the effect of something, we assume out of the gate that what we're searching for had an effect, right? Even if we know that to be true, that is language that prejudices our search. And we call that prejudicial or biased language because it steers our search in a direction that we expect it to go, right? We don't necessarily want only those results, but that's what we're telling it to give us. So when we use words like impact, effect, outcome, we are guiding our search and prejudicing our search in a specific direction. So we're going to drop the word impact from this. And now I have a couple more results. I'm actually going to truncate the word application. We're going to see what happens. Maybe nothing, maybe something, nothing. Okay. When I do truncation, and I literally cannot zoom my screen in without making the little sound effects. I can't help myself. Do you see this lovely little asterisk here? What that little asterisk does is it lets me search for all the possible suffixes of a word, right? So we'll come back to this search. I could come back over here and I could truncate the word nutrition. I have 1,706 results. When I truncate nutrition, I have 2,180. Why? Nutrition, nutritional, nutritionist, right? There are suffixes to that word that could be relevant to my search that I was not initially including. So if I truncate a word, I get all the possible suffixes to that word. Oh, tell me more, Tiffany. All right. I'm going to assume Tiffany is typing and we'll come back to that. When we use truncation, it lets me build out on that. So I always want to be thinking about, is there another way to, so I could even come here and I could truncate this back all the way to the root here, because I might also want to know about applying it as well as the applications of it, right? So that took my search up some. Okay, we'll get there. I'm going to get to as many of you as I can. I know that we're getting kind of tight on time. As far as, let me come back here and do one more thing. Listen, the weather, I think, is about to roll in and get me. So you may not be able to find exactly, although here's some, you may be able to apply these out broader, but as far as looking at the actual corporate tax policies, I think you're going to want to go into the government documents of each state, and I think you're going to want to go pull up that documentation. Rather than finding specifically the tax policies in an article, you're going to find articles, as you can see, discussing tax policies and what those tax policies do and how they maybe affect business. But you're probably not going to find an article that's just on those one states. You can probably look at or on those 3 states. But what I would say, go pull up the policies from the states and then look at articles from a more general perspective of corporate tax policies and the applications, right? So I think you're going to need to play with it a little bit, but I think you're going to find a lot of what you're looking for in government documents. Okay. I'm going to go back to other topics because I saw somebody else posted one, but I do want to show y'all one more thing. If we go back to the library homepage, there's an option here to search for journal titles. If I go into one of these articles and I look at the full text, let's say that this is my dream article. Actually, let me go back. Let's look at this one. If I look at the full text of this, and I say I want to see those beautiful, beautiful references. This comes up so tiny for y'all. I want to see these references. I want to get into this. Oh, no, it took me to the reference, which is nice, but that's not what I'm trying to demonstrate. You can look and see if we have a specific resource. That's what I want you to see. It's making it tiny. Okay. Give me the references again. Okay, this is very chaotic. They keep updating the databases, and like I appreciate that, but also I wish they would stop. Okay, so let's look and see if we can find this article from the Journal of Economics and Development. Because one way that you can build out your resources is if you find your dream article, your perfect article, everything you've ever wanted in an article, you can go and see if we have any of their references, because their references are also going to be related to your area of study, right? Most likely. So now I want to see if we have access to this specific article. Now this says that the journal is open source, and it is in a couple of our databases. So I'm going to pop over here. And I'm going to search within that publication. No, I want to search my article title. Now, occasionally, if you're doing this and you happen to pick up a lot of punctuation with it, it will get a little wonky and not work. So just make sure you're paying attention. So here's my article. Now, could I request this from Interlibrary Loan? Sure, yes. But then I would have to wait for Interlibrary Loan to get it for me. Or I could just have it. And that took me less than a minute to do. So just really consider this as a way for you to also build your search. Look at your references. Look at the list and the articles you're in, okay? Okay, next topic, overuse injuries in youth sport specialization. Okay, so we're gonna come over here, back to our search, because this search includes sport discus. Well, this search is going to include sport discus because I'm going to add it. So I'm going to add sport discus to my search. I'm going to hit select. And I'm going to put in overuse injuries and youth sports. I'm going to try youth sports specialization. This might be too specific, but we'll see. We only got one result. So let's go back a little bit and get rid of the word specialization. And now we've got 408. Let me put specialization back in there. $134. Okay, so we've got some results here. I want to make this more specific. First of all, I'm going to put overuse injuries in quotation marks. You're looking for something particular. Now I have 104. I'm going to put youth sports in quotation marks. That's another specific phrase, right? Now I'm down to only 30 results. That's not bad. That is not a bad thing. I do want to come back here though, and I'm going to truncate this at the L. Why am I going to truncate it at the L? Specialty, specialization. I think in some countries they spell specialization with an S and not a Z. I would specializing. I want to get all of those suffixes, right? I want all of those possibilities included in my search. I only search specialization. I only get specialization. I'm missing out on good stuff, right? So I want to make sure that I'm getting everything. But now we're going to search for something else. We're going to add another term. So our last Boolean modifier is not. And we're going to get rid of football. We're kicking it out. Okay? It changed nothing. I'm shocked. Football is such a good one to use in these examples. Listen, if we're talking about injury, somebody's always getting hurt in football. Okay? Let's try baseball. Admittedly, baseball pitchers do get a lot of injury, overuse injuries. Volleyball, yes. So you can choose to kick somebody out of your search. And that's what not lets you do. So we have and, which creates a string of keywords. We have or, which lets you search synonymous terms. We have quotation marks, which lets you turn keywords into key phrases. We have truncation, which lets you search for all the possible suffix of the word, and we have not, which removes a search term from your string. Why do you want to use not? Sometimes what you end up getting is a string of results that are overwhelmed by one subset of knowledge, right? So for example, if we are looking for articles on neurodiversity, the vast amount of articles that have been written on that relate specifically to autism spectrum, those kinds of things, right? That encompasses a huge pool. But if you are looking for neurodiversity outside of that scope, it can be hard to doggy paddle your way through it, right? That's a lot of information that you have to filter. So you can remove that sub area, that topic from your search string. The same thing goes for if you're looking at English language learners. Well, in the United States in particular, the vast amount of knowledge on that, the vast amount of studies on that are focused on Spanish language speakers, okay? If you're looking for another subset of knowledge, it's going to be harder to find that. So when you think about what you want to pull out of a search, are you struggling to find what you're looking for because there is so much other information? One other thing that I want to point out to y'all is well, they've moved it, so it doesn't really matter. It's not easy for you to find anymore. But one thing that I do want to say is that I know it can be tempting to try and limit things geographically. I know it can be tempting to do that. I don't encourage it. The tagging on that is really, really bad. If you dig down deep into like the advanced search stuff, you can still get to it. It's terrible. Okay. It is just bad tagging. You don't want to do it. It's not going to benefit you. You're not going to find what you're looking for. You can limit it by language if you find yourself getting a lot of foreign language results, but by and large, limiting it geographically is not something that's really going to benefit you when it comes to using what the database offers you to set things up as, okay? I know that it's something we want. We want to look at something in a specific region. We want to look at something in a specific area. The tagging on that is catastrophic, really. You'll get articles that apparently don't think that California and Kentucky and Tennessee are all in the United States. So just kind of bear that in mind. Okay. Any questions for me? While you mull that over, I'm going to copy and paste the survey into the chat. Remember that if you want me to tell your professor that you attended, you must complete the survey because that is the only way I know who your professor is. I can pull attendance and see that you attended, but I won't know who to tell that you attended. So it's very important for you to please fill out the survey. If you have questions later, please feel free to reach out. Remember that you will be able to view the recording if you come into the Communicate tab. You'll be able to pull up the recording. Remember that I don't expect you to memorize all of this, so if you call me and ask a question, I will not make fun of you for not knowing it. And I thank you all very much for giving me some of your time this evening. And if anybody has any questions, I'll stick around until 7:30 when the class is officially over. Otherwise, once you have completed this survey, you are free to go.